We the People, James Stewart here, along with my partner, Oliver Ford. And we are privileged enough to have our first political interview. We the People, we told you that we were going to try to bring you candidates from Onslow County that are running from office so you can get to know them a little and get to know how they feel, what they stand for, and just get a little insight. We have our first candidate. Her name is Miss Angie Todd. She is running for Board of Education here in Onslow County. Ms. Todd, it's a pleasure to have you.
It's nice to meet you, James. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful, wonderful. Let's start with, tell us a little about yourself. What brings you to Eastern North Carolina, if you're from somewhere else, and how did you come to this point?
I'm originally from Ohio. We had friends that moved down here in 2015. So we started vacationing here. We loved it. We'd always talked about moving to the beach. So when we came here, we enjoyed it. It was a time in our life when we made the move. My daughter had been in an active addiction to meth and heroin at the time. And so when she went into recovery in 2018, that's when we told her as long as she could stay on her path to recovery that she could come with us. Okay. So we made the move. I gave her to God during that addiction, and that was something that it was a turning point for me, because that was the first time I'd ever actually, like, really, a lot of times you say you pray for things, but when you really give something to God and let God take the wheel, that was something
Indeed.
that I did. So I told him if he let me have her back, that I would work diligently to make a change and do whatever I could do to make the world a better place. So.
All right.
So we made the move to North Carolina and called Onslow County home. And then last year, during COVID, I think a lot of us learned a lot during COVID. When school started last year, we wanted. They decided that I had started talking at school board meetings in support of freedom or personal choice for masks.
Okay.
Because I felt like at that point we had been 18 months into COVID, and that parents could make a decision whether their child needed to wear a mask.
Indeed.
And so they voted to not have masks, and then 7 days later they reversed that. So at that point, I just, we were just in a place in our country, I think, where we were gonna, the average citizen was gonna have to start stepping up to make changes. We can't rely on somebody else to do that and stand around complaining if you're not willing to get up and do something. So
we agree. We really agree. And that is the truth. That's part of the reason why we started this channel, to try to get community back the way community used to be. We took care of each other. You knew your neighbor, things of that sort. That's wonderful. Do you have any background in education?
I do not, other than being a parent.
Well, that's all you need. That's all you need.
My oldest child's 29, and I know how school was when she started school. My youngest is 14. I have custody of 2 of my 3 grandsons because of my daughter's addiction. And so the difference in when my older children went to school and when my youngest is going to school now and when my grandsons are going to school is so drastic, because when my older ones went to school, I could go in, I could eat lunch, I was reading in the classroom, I was always there, the doors were open. It didn't feel like you were going, get your ID out and all this stuff. But when you went in, everybody was like, hi, Miss.
They knew your name.
But yeah.
I understand.
It was just a totally different environment than what it is now.
Yeah, I go in and there's locked doors and I show my ID, and if I wanted to check in on my child in class, I don't think I have that They say I do, but they won't. You can't disturb the class, things of that sort. So I understand what you're talking about.
Let me throw one in there real quick at you.
Absolutely.
So how do you transition from that mom role into politics? I would think that's a big step then.
It is a very big step, but I think being a parent makes you more passionate about it. You have a stake in what happens moving forward. Myself, probably like a lot of people, up until 2020, we voted, and we just assumed that our officials, or the people we voted for, were doing the job that we needed them to do. And then in 2020, when the election came through, it just, I think it was the same for a lot of people in different ways though. You just realized things weren't the way you thought they were.
Right.
And people didn't have your best interests at heart. And, they're running your country, and we have kids that have to have a country to run, and they're not going to have that in 20 years if we don't step up and make the change that needs to be made right now.
So, what would you suggest to somebody? Because there's a lot of people out there that feel the way you do, and they want to step up, but a lot of people don't know how to go about it. What do they do first? Can they get into politics? I mean,
my stepdad, and it's a funny story. My stepdad several years ago said, "You should run for board of education." I was like, "I'm not getting into politics." And then I started speaking at school board meetings, and then that's no more than anything. I think that you have to find it. You have to not think because you're one person you can't make a difference, because you can.
We talk about that all the time.
Well, and I saw, I watched a lot of people do, different people on, like, especially since the election, on different channels. You watch them, and they all have different perspectives on things. But one gentleman one night I was watching, he was talking about the butterfly effect, and I'd never heard it, but he was explaining to it. He was like how one person does one thing, and then you take that. You inspire that person to do something that was just a little bit bigger than what you thought you could do. But that moment wouldn't have happened had you not done your one thing.
Right.
So you have to remember that even if you're just one person, you can make a difference, because I didn't think I could make a difference as one person.
We struggle with that all the time. We try to do good deeds, just to do good deeds. Not for a thank you or reason why, just because it's the right thing to do. And sometimes the way the world is, you wonder, are you on the wrong side of things? That going. Let me ask you, Ms. Todd, all of us have heard Board of Education. What is the true function of the Board of Education, and what do they have say-so over with our school systems?
So basically, the Board of Education, their first priority is to give the children a sound basic education, as it is directed by the Supreme Court of North Carolina.
Okay.
They help write policies. They fire the superintendent, and then they support the superintendent in decisions that need to be made in the administration.
All right.
And I do believe they're supposed to be helping with curriculum, deciding what that is, because a lot of times the school systems don't want to dwell in the curriculum, so
Right.
they pull from the state
I see.
versus doing it.
I see. So what decisions, like we've heard in the past, especially during COVID, a lot of people have seen negative side of the Board of Education. Some of the rules and things that they, like you talked about the masks and things of that sort. As a community, what can me as a parent or us as a community do to assist the Board of Education in taking care of our kids? Because it seems like sometimes we don't have a say-so. It's just, they said this and that's what it is.
I think that's kind of why I'm here, because I'm trying to get to the understanding of how we can make that different, because I feel like there's a disconnect between the parents and the school board and the administration. I know, talking with with a lot of the parents that I've talked to, a lot of them are afraid to step up. They're afraid of retaliation and what have you.
Example of them.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
And I know a lot of people are going to say that maybe, I don't know, they don't feel that way, but I know when I went to the board meeting where they had put the mask back in, and so some of the parents had told their kids, "You're not wearing a mask because I told you I didn't want to wear a mask." And they isolated those children and put them in rooms and things, and their kids were just doing what their parents
Parents
believed.
told them, yeah. And then that's what we say we want. We want you to listen to your mom and dad.
So
Listen to the teacher.
I mean, it's a thin line on how you look at it. I just feel like but I don't know. I just felt like that was drastic, I guess.
I understand. That brings us to the, in your letter, you were talking about the survey. Certain survey that you learned about. Can you just tell our viewers about the survey?
So I follow Sloan Rockmoth she's president of Education First Alliance out of Raleigh, and they started their organization on January 6th last year when everything went down at the Capitol. Their big thing was to focus on the education system in North Carolina, because I believe 20 years ago North Carolina was number 12 in I believe their current, that's how drastic the drop has been in the 20 years. So that was their big focus. Well, if you go in and you talk about, North Carolina has social emotional learning, and it's mandated in the all 12 academic standards, which basically it's a more passive form of CRT, because it's more easier to be acclimated into the curriculum without, the harshness of what CRT is. So, basically they're just getting down to that. So the surveys are given 3 to 9 times a year, and they're given through they're either online, they can be online inside the laptops, or as we found out, they can be done verbally inside the classroom for the younger children. I had a parent, because I had a couple parents that were willing to step up because they were concerned with their children. So she took screenshots of the survey off of her daughter's laptop. And one of the questions was, do you feel safe at home? And the answers were sometimes, most of the time, or not at all. But there was not an option to say that they felt safe at home. The survey will not complete unless you give an answer. So you have to leave an answer. So if you go to Senate Bill 476, which is a North Carolina mental health bill, they passed that in 2019. And in that it requires school teachers to take, I believe, and don't quote me because I don't have it in front of me, but they're supposed to take a lot of training in mental health. So it feels like they're trying to make our teachers be mental health professionals on top of their teaching, which that's not their
They're not trained for that.
right.
Yeah.
And their job is to educate our children, not to try to evaluate them.
Right.
So if you also refer to the Senate Bill 476, on September 15th and December 15th each year, this data that's collected is sent to 2 committees at the legislative level. What they do with that information after that, we don't know.
Oh.
So the surveys, I asked for the surveys a couple of different ways because I had heard them being called different things in different places. So I learned how to submit Freedom of Information Act requests. So I submitted it for this one with this name, and they said we don't have that. And then I submitted a second one with a different name. We don't have that. Well, after this parent screenshotted the questions, I knew what the name of the survey was. So I submitted a third Freedom of Information Act request. And that's when they responded back with they couldn't share it with me because it was copyrighted. Because it was a contractual thing.
Interesting.
So then I responded back, well, when do parents give permission for these surveys? And they said that they, in so many words, and I don't have it in front of me that either, but in so many words, it was within the superintendent's privy to do that because of policy something. So they didn't have to parents don't have to give permission.
So let me stop for a second. So the superintendent makes the call, whether
that
it's
was the way
or
I
not?
read the email. I would be more than happy to share that with you, so that you
Interesting.
have clarification in case anybody asks you.
Right.
They do all the policies and stuff. Sometimes it's hard to remember when you're.
Which brings us back around to why we need to be more involved. What we need to know what their purpose are, what their standings are. Because you hear a lot of stuff. I recently heard, now, you know, you have rumors, bad or good. I heard they're implementing things such as they're putting litter boxes in schools. I mean, to me as a parent, this stuff needs to be talked about. This stuff needs to be talked about. The school needs to let me know and let me voice an opinion about how I feel about this. And yes, you may have a million opinions, but to just make policy like this, a lot of it just sounds outlandish. And that's why I say, you know, we would love to know what we can do as parents to get in there and just find out what's going on, keep up, just like a PTA meeting. PTA meetings, there's a famous meme out there that says when Jordan shoes come out, the line's wrapped around the building. When there's a PTA meeting, it's a ghost town. You know what I mean?
Right.
I really feel like we need to get more involved. We need to get back in our community and back in the school system. And that's why we appreciate you, you know, coming here talking to us.
I got one for you. Now, you already, I'm sure you realize already, it's going to be an uphill battle for you. When you get in there, and like so many people, they get in there and realize, oh my God, what did I get myself into? Because it's going to be coming at you. You're opposing the system, the way the system is set up currently. You're going to be opposing that. What can we do as, you know, you're backing people behind you? What can we do to support you? Because once you get in there, and you see how it is with the policies and how because they've been in there for a while, they know how to turn stuff. So your hands are tied when you get in there. How do we support you to get you the support you need in order to move forward, to make changes?
I think that I think people just need to be more. They need to step up and let their voices be heard. I think that and I can't even say that. I think that a lot of times, I'm going to use the word the establishment because some parents, I've talked to a lot of parents, they said, well, I went to school and I've said this and I'm upset and they told me to go home or kick me off school grounds because I got upset or something, you know, and it's like, and so how many times do most parents get up after something like that, you know? I mean, at that point, you
feel like there's nothing you can do.
I can't go up against this establishment, but I think as a whole we can.
Yes, definitely.
And that we have to remember that if we stick together, that there's strength in numbers.
So when we voice our opinion, is it the school board meetings or where do we commissioners meetings?
Yeah, because I think a lot of people don't understand that there's a difference between school board and school administration. So a lot of times they think they're handling, because you're supposed to handle from the level wherever the issue is. So you go to the teacher, principal, superintendent.
So forth.
If you can't get your answer there, then you go to the school board, because the school board is overseeing the superintendent.
Right.
And so you want to go up that chain of command, and then if you can't, then you go to the school board meeting, which is once a month on Tuesday evenings at 6 o'clock. And everything's online. You just go to the Onslow County Board of Education and you look on there, and then you want to go to meetings and agendas, and usually they have the agenda like 48 hours before. And as long as you get 5 minutes to speak, they have a public comment period, and you'll fill out a form and they'll tell you just say your name, address, and what you're speaking on. So as long as it's something that the board has control over, then you're allowed to speak on it.
So when you go to one of these meetings and you fill out a form and you speak and so forth, how easy for them to just disregard it? It never happened. We don't care. I'm just curious.
That's always possible.
That's
I mean, I know I've spoke there a few times, and sometimes I was addressed and sometimes I wasn't. But they do it in their comment. The Board of Education has the board's comment period at the end, so they all get to speak.
Are the meetings advertised on G10, the board?
I don't think so.
No?
I always found mine online.
Huh.
I just went to the Board of Education.
I know, like the commissioners meeting or the
They might be on
Other
there.
meetings.
I don't.
That's why I was
they?
wondering if they
Okay.
if they are. And a lot of people don't know about these channels and
No.
these avenues to go to and places to look for stuff.
No, and honestly, I didn't know that much about the school board before I went in and started speaking.
Well, it's all about getting involved.
Yes.
I have a question. Does the Board of Education have anything to do with safety in our schools? We know we were just hit with a tragedy here in Onslow County. And does the Board of Education have anything to do with keeping our schools safe?
Well, they actually write the policies, and then the superintendent puts the policies into place. And so, when we were at the school board meeting this Tuesday, and you can go back and watch it because they're all on YouTube, so you can always go back and watch this. Miss Oakley did a good job of asking a few questions of Dusty Rhodes, who was in charge of the safety over there, and those were her concerns. So she was asking him about different things and if there was other things they could implement. But at that point, those discussions happened between
I understand.
the board, well, the superintendent and them, and then I think that she asked to be included.
I know during your interview with Sloan, because I was watching it, and I believe she said that she's from Wake County.
Yes.
It is, and they have resource officers in all the schools there.
So they're the only county to have resource officers in all the schools.
Wow.
I remember that.
You ever ask about that or wonder,
Well,
or do you
they
know?
came up at the meeting
Yeah.
on Tuesday evening, and I believe they said they had them in all of the high schools, all the middle schools. They had asked to put 2 in White Oak. There was 4 high schools, White Oak, North Side, and
Jacksonville.
yeah, and then there was one other one, and they used abbreviations for it, so I wasn't sure. I didn't hear what that one was, and then, but I believe they said most of the elementary schools, but I don't think they have them in all of the elementary schools.
It's all about keeping our kids safe.
But if you go back and you can find the school board meeting from Tuesday, that might clear up a little bit, some information for you as well.
Thank you. Is there any other questions from the audience? So, Ms. Todd, once again, We the People, we thank you for being our first political person here on our podcast. We're going to keep our eye on you.
All right, sounds good.
And we like what we see. And if we can do anything, please, you let us know.
Absolutely.
All right.
We're
Thank you.
definitely
Thank you.
go.